In Florida, 14 Dream Defenders and allied organization members were taken away in handcuffs for refusing to leave the governor's office. The Dream Defenders sit-in was part of a national protest called Freedom to Learn. The protesters wanted to shed light on many issues facing Floridians and called for a meeting with DeSantis to share the legislative session's impact on communities. Joining me now are two of the organizers of the protest, Green and Malik Ready. Welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, thank you all so much for having us.
And Malik, it looks like you are graduation ready. Congratulations. What are you, before we get into the story, what are you graduating with? What's your degree in?
My Associate of Arts in Political Science.
That's awesome. All right. So talk a little bit, I'll let you start off, about exactly what this protest was and what you were trying to bring attention to for Malik.
Yeah, I think we were, and we had some goals, and those goals were to bring attention to the fascist governor that we have in the state of Florida, with the bad bills like abortion bills, education bills, and the immigration bill that was just passed. And we did that as part of our Can't Ban Us campaign. And so we have to continue to show that Florida is the place that he's going to use to try to puppet some things through. And we got to make sure that we stop him now so that he does not get in the White House. And this is just the beginning. There's more to come from us in the Dream Defenders.
Ashley, I know that the word or the phrase Dream Defenders has a very specific meaning. Can you talk about what that means to for the audience?
Yes, we came into existence after the murder of Trayvon Martin, obviously, and I think we're a part of a renewed arc fighting for justice across this country that was really being informed by a lot of civil rights elders. And a lot of Black Power elders, and so really embodied sort of that spirit in the name Dream Defenders. But over the years, I think it became really a lot more critical just to think about what is the dream worth defending for our youth and our communities, and making sure that there is a dream for ourselves, for our peers, and for the people who are now, 10 years later, a generation under us who are still fighting for freedom and still fighting for justice in their neighborhoods and in their communities. And so for us, Dream Defenders is really a rallying cry that, like, not only are we fighting for a dream, but that we deserve to have a dream to fight for in the first place.
Absolutely. And we see Ron DeSantis getting legislative win after win after win. Your organization, the kinds of protests that you all are responsible for organizing, are going to be critically important in highlighting the fascist that he is when he inevitably launches his national campaign. Do you have any reaction to the ways that the legislature right now is moving to make it easier for Ron DeSantis to run for president and maintain his position as governor of Florida?
I mean, it's a classic story in Florida that they change the rules in order to fit them and benefit them. Ron DeSantis is no different than a Rick Scott, than a Jeb Bush, who has been consistently focused on gaining more and more power and rigging the game in their favor. I think someone previously said you can't win a war when the rules are played, when there are a different set of rules. And Florida is really ground zero for that. There should be no reason why Ron DeSantis is both trying to govern the state of Florida and run for governor based on a more than 20-year policy across the state. And yet he changed the rules so he could do it. And when you look at the two Black district seats that we lost last year, it's through gerrymandering that was specifically to make sure that Black people were denied a voice in Congress, even though the state of Florida gained 2 more congressional seats through the census process. Mm-hmm. And so this is just a continued arc of rigging the game against Black citizens in Florida, but really rigging the game for their pursuit of petty political power. And it's unacceptable, and we're going to keep fighting back against it.
Yeah, Malik Ashley talked about how Florida is kind of like ground zero for so many things that are happening. It's hard to keep up with it all because DeSantis is on a roll. What's something other than, like, for instance, the attention-grabbing Reecie Creek battle that's going on? What's something that really is flying under the radar in Florida that people should be paying attention to that you all are trying to shed light on?
Yeah, our priority bill, this legislation was HB 99, which we call the Mega University Bill, which had parts of diversity, inclusion, and equity that have been taken away from our universities, especially our D9s were on the chopping block. They are getting gender studies in the schools that offer it, and they're also reducing the budget that was given to these programs in our DEI. And that is important, especially we have so many HBCUs here in the state of Florida. And actually, Florida has one of the highest of debtors in the nation. And so as we continue to see these things being rolled back, we got to pay attention. You're definitely correct. And then for me, that is that HB 99 bill, especially I'm about to go to FAM in the fall that's coming up. And I would still, I would love to go there. I would be a third generation Rattler. So, that is a bill that is striking home for me.
Okay, sounds good. I definitely have seen that they were successful in getting that passed. And I'm not sure if he signed it yet or if it's going to his desk, but that is something that people warned about that kind of just flew under the radar a little bit. I'm going to go to the panel and give them an opportunity to ask you all questions. I'm going to start off with you, Dr. Haynes.
Thank you both for the work that you're doing. I have so many questions. As a political scientist, congratulations, Malik. I am incredibly proud of you. I hope you stick with it. There are rewards down the way. And, I went to UCLA for undergrad, and there are many intersections here in terms of, I remember when DACA was passed. I worked for DEIA programs for many, many years. They're just cross-cuts across a lot of things that I personally care about. So my question will be very similar to something I was thinking about with the representative from Texas earlier. I love the fact that sit-ins are happening and that there are actual things that are being done on the ground. But in terms of fighting back, say through the legal system or in other ways, what are some of the strategies, if you can talk about them, that you all are doing along with these kind of very strong and symbolic gestures like this sit-in?
Yeah, I can start. Florida is a state that I said earlier has been working to rig itself against us for over a generation. And there's a supermajority, not just in the legislature and in the executive branch, but they have rigged the courts in ways that has made a lot of these policies difficult to fight back against. And so we've been consistently filing suit with partners like the SPLC against bills like HB1, which really limited protest rights. We'll be doing the same around some of these immigration policies, around some of the education policies. But the way that Florida has been set up over this last generation has made it difficult to know what avenues and routes we have beyond taking civil disobedience and direct action in order to fight for, justice in our communities. Even when we get things done at the community level, the state regularly preempts local policies and makes those policies inadmissible or impossible to implement. So when we get wage theft ordinances passed, when we get minimum wage policies passed, when we get protective policies passed, the state will come in and actually limit the ability of a municipality to do that. And we'll, can file suit after suit after suit, but we're in a project of trying to build long-term political power here because it is the only solution that we have in a state like Florida that keeps exporting its bad policies across the country.
Yeah, I think that's a really key point, that these policies are going national. I mean, all of the Republican Party nationally is trading one bad idea for the other, and they keep escalating with these oppressive and fascist policies. So people can't just ignore what's happening in one state or another because it's probably coming to a town or a state near you. I'm going to go to Dr. Monago.
Yeah, you said these ideas are bad. Now, I personally agree that they're bad, but it's relative and subjective depending on your agenda. To some people, what's going on is good. So I want to say that because I believe in looking at contrasting perspectives, even if I disagree with them, that they're indeed based on what people think is good for them. And white supremacist control freaks in this country who want to sustain power believe everything they're doing is in the good, it's right, it's justified in terms of what they think should happen in this world. But I have two questions. One is, earlier it was referenced that Florida was ground zero for so many basically problematic things. I was wondering if Biden's cabinet or Biden has addressed Florida and all that it's dealing with to kind of use his position to throw a wrench in the injustice norms that are occurring there. That's one question. The second question is, and it's similar to what I asked the representative earlier, is the community involved as a collective against resisting this white supremacist scorched earth approach to power in Florida? Is it still, or is it small groups of people, or has the community become alarmed? And for example, when they attack Gillum, this is a Florida phenomenon, is the community looking at all of this from a collective perspective, or is it mostly the traditional activist types who are in the streets? I hope you remember my first question about Biden.
Well, have you answer that, Malik?
I feel like we do a good job of not just having the activists in the street. That's why we're here, right? We're trying to build that door power and people power, and that is getting the folks that aren't necessarily educated about the things that's going on. And I know I haven't got to your first question. I'm going to actually give that question to AG. But I do think that we are doing a great job of trying to get those that are not necessarily knowing what is going on. It's actually funny you said, that should be the governor of the state right now, Andrew Gillum, and he just got a non-guilty verdict today. So right now we have to take that information to the streets. And so I think we do a good job of that in Dream Defenders. That is our ultimate goal. And I'll toss it over to AG.
Yeah, obviously, we are first and foremost invested in building power amongst people and community, not amongst other activists or people in echo chamber. I will say that the right, again, has had a generational agenda of building political power of their own. And so when we talk about these voucher programs and dismantling of public education, when we're talking about these immigration policies, people have been told to turn against one another and turn against a collective interest. And so we have to do that education work in community. I think in terms of Biden, whether or not he has been proactive enough as a president in Florida, I think is definitely up for debate. We have seen different parts of the administration be supportive and fighting back and offering support around combating some of these policies. But we definitely think that the federal government has a larger responsibility to intervene in what's really some unconstitutional policies that are being forwarded. And I think the way that this legislature has been so aggressive in just rubber stamping any outrageous policy that the DeSantis sort of administration is forwarding has definitely given a lot of space, I think, to see DOJ intervention. And so we're hoping that we actually can see, more aggressive action taken by the Biden administration as these policies start to take effect.
Right, and of course I have to just add that Vice President Kamala Harris was in Florida within a month or so ago, taking it to DeSantis on the specific issue of reproductive rights. Lauren, you get the last question for this segment.
I'm wondering from the two of you, have you seen any improvement with the Florida party since, of course, they lost big, as I'm sure you know, last November? Do you see any improvement in the local wing of the party, or is it just starting to rebuild? How's that going?
I'm going to be honest with you. The state of Florida is 6 different states, and so Malik might have a different answer than I do. I think in Central Florida, where I'm at, the party is in a real rebuilding process. I'm sort of in the I-4 corridor part of the state. I think when we're talking about South Florida and just sort of the collapse, especially amongst Latino voters on behalf of the party, there's a long project ahead. And I think when you're looking at North Florida, Malik can speak to that more, but probably are a little bit more developed in terms of building and rebuilding a strategy to win. Obviously, we just had redistricting happen last year, and so the math has been reset, and the pathway to power looks a lot different, but it's going to be a long road and one that we're committed to really being focused on over the next decade.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ashley, I think it's so important that you talked about that commitment and the fact that it's a long road, because so often we kind of score wins in terms of our agendas in terms of every 2 years, and the reality is that Republicans play long game. They cheat when they have to. They bend the rules. And yet, as Democratic voters, so often we're looking for a win yesterday. So activists and organizers like you are so critical in keeping us focused on the fact that we have to stay engaged in between elections, irrespective of what the legislative map looks like and what kind of wins the other side is racking up. So thank you so much for your dedication. Florida is very lucky to have you.
Thank you all so much for having us. And beyond the party, we know we still have to be in a project of building political power by any means necessary.
Absolutely. It's not just about Democratic or Republican. It's about Black political power in particular. Before you go, how can folks follow the work that you're doing with the Dream Defenders?
DreamDefenders.org is our website. At Dream Defenders is where you can find us on Twitter, same on Instagram. We're across multiple social media platforms. We're on TikTok. And so type Dream Defenders into your search engine and it's going to pull up ways to get involved. But that primary website is DreamDefenders.org. And we are ready not just to take on the fight in the state of Florida, but actually expanding nationally. And so coming to a city near you very soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashley.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.